Over half of the world plants and animal species live in some sort of jungle environment. It means that they're absolutely teeming with life. Jungles are often found on the outskirts of rainforests, so they're not the same thing. Jungles are always in hotter, tropical locations and have different types of flora and fauna, that's the plants and animals. So let's take a look at our jungle world. Around 6% of the Earth's surface is covered in jungle, and temperatures can get quite high during the day. Jungles can be found across the world, but unlike rainforests, they only exist in tropical areas, which means they get a very specific kind of climate. A lot of rainfall during the wet season, coupled with a hot climate, means that jungles are perfect for vines and shrubs, insects and reptiles, and some larger mammals too. And in jungles, we normally find these on the forest floor. The jungle is well known for its impenetrable undergrowth. It's really hard to see anything in any direction, and because the understory still gets some sunlight in jungles, the forest floor gets a lot of life added to it. The understory is the ground layer, full of flowers, moss, and shrubs. And as you move higher, you get the trees that spread their way up into the canopy, but with vines hanging all the way back down. And because the sunlight pours down to the floor, all of this plant life thrives. Mix that with the rain, rivers, and waterfalls you get in the jungle, and you have the perfect habitat for wildlife, as well as the plants that call this home. The plants are perfectly adapted to live there, using their unique shapes and sizes to cope with the conditions there, much like the animals too. Now, I've spent my share of time in the jungles, and insects were not my favorite part. But I understand that they're not only important to the habitat, they're essential to it. Every part of a habitat is needed for it to continue to work. So insects are a crucial part of the food chain for both animals and the plants, and a great way for the jungle to create a cycle of plants as the insects break down the fallen ones. I've spent time with the most venomous spiders on Earth, the itchiest caterpillars, and the most painful ants. But all of them have their part to play in their ecosystem, so we should always respect what they do for the planet and what they do for us, keeping the jungles going. Some of the most interesting insects I've ever seen in the jungle include the awesome praying mantis, colonies of leafcutter ants, stick and leaf camouflage insects that blend into the background, and of course the huge tarantulas the size of your hand that wait in holes to pounce on their prey. But many of these insects feed larger animals that live here in the jungle too. Reptiles are an amazing type of animal that are covered in scales or sometimes bony plates. They regulate their temperature by moving in and out of sunny spots in the jungle to warm up. Amphibians like frogs then are pretty wonderful creatures. They have primitive lungs which act as gills when they're underwater, but allow them to breathe through their skin when in air. In the jungle you find a lot of brightly coloured reptiles and amphibians, and they're bright for a reason. It's because they're either venomous and can bite you to defend themselves, or they're poisonous and will harm you if you eat them. So they're a great warning sign to not hurt them. Unfortunately, we're losing a lot of these species. It's estimated that we've lost 200 species of frog in just the last 50 years alone. They've gone extinct. The people who study frogs are called herpetologists, and they've been sounding the alarm for 40 years that we need to do something to protect the habitat of our frog friends. We think now that as much as 41% of amphibians are threatened with extinction, which is not good. But many other jungle animals face difficult times too. Larger animals can sometimes feel more obvious to us humans, and there are plenty in the jungles. I think we find it easier to feel attached to animals that are similar in size to us, but everything we spoke about up to now creates a habitat for these animals to live. Everything from the tapir, to the tiger, the capybara, the gorilla, the sloth, the jaguar, and capuchin. One of my favorite animals in the jungle though is definitely the ocelot. I mean, look how cute. So you can see how there's a pyramid of energy that works its way through the jungle. Plants take in energy from the sun, and along with water from the rain and the air around them, create a chain of food and energy for everything above it. It's created a very stable ecosystem for a long time. Humans over the last few hundred years though have made that balance very unstable. We're losing rainforests and jungles like never before. As humans cut down jungles to make way for farmland and crops, we destroy habitats for this essential wildlife that we're going to find very hard to save. But we can do something to help. By checking to see where our food and drink comes from, we can make sure it's rainforest free. This will mean that the ingredients that are used for our food isn't grown where there used to be a jungle, because after all, jungles are essential to a stable planet.